Let's give you a softball. What was your reaction when you saw things unfolding on Saturday?
Disbelief. How could that happen? And then after reviewing it, I really can't figure out how it happened. I mean, I've talked to Marine snipers, SEAL snipers, I've talked to CIA operatives, um, some operators, those are more or less mercenaries. Um, and they all said the same thing. They said, this is a complete breach of security, and that we were very lucky because every one of them said that they could have made that shot without a doubt. And Trump turned his head to one way, and that people spotted this guy. What in the world? And this administration is going to be doing backflips to protect the head of the Secret Service, but she needs to go. President said, he's going to put a first woman in there. Why don't you just put the best person in there? Why do we have to do this? This is not about, I'm not worried about offending somebody because they work for the Secret Service. I'm worried about somebody that can protect the president. You saw the defiant picture. That picture should have never been made because the lady that was in front of him was clearly, her height was below his shoulders. And that's just not, put somebody, they have to have the same physical ability. This is not some everybody gets a trophy thing. This is protecting the man who will be the next president of the United States. And how would you let a sniper in that perimeter? And then I also thought about the president saying that, we need to get Trump in our crosshairs. And then you've got 9 Democrats putting a bill forward to strip President Trump of his Secret Service protection when Hunter Biden has Secret Service protection. You got to remember Robert Kennedy, the guy running for president, he doesn't even have security. Biden turned him down. To me, that is just, it's reprehensible. And I can't, people shouldn't stand for that kind of thing.
You and I, a couple of weeks, probably a month or so ago, talked about an argument in a House committee that you were not a part of, but a witness to. There's been rhetoric. There's been rhetoric before 2016, since 2016. While, the sitting president the other day did say it's time to put Trump in the crosshairs, there's been really bad words said on both sides of the aisle.
Oh, yeah.
And now it's met a fever pitch to where somebody tried to shoot a former sitting U.S. president and a candidate for president in this election cycle. How is this an example of the rhetoric is dangerous on both sides?
Yeah. The interesting thing about this guy is he's an American citizen. He's not a radical Muslim. He's not some foreign agent. He's some American kid or young man, I guess, that has been exposed to all this, and he's got something wrong in his head, and it just clicks. And it's what we're going to see more of, though. I feel, we've got a mental health crisis in this country, and we're not treating it, obviously. I mean, this guy's, both his parents were in the mental health field, allegedly. So there's some real problems there, real problems. And the last few mass shooters we've seen have all been, they've got the girl in Nashville, transgender, a couple of them before they were in medical care. It's just on down the line. And so I think and I think that's why President Trump is rewriting his speech. He's going to talk about unity. He's going to talk about what we need to do to get us back on track. I feel like we're on the cusp of losing our country is what we're about to do if we're not careful.
You and I, when we've had multiple conversations about a number of topics, and you usually always come back around to saying, I'm friends with folks inside the House who are Democrats. You name a handful.
Yeah.
But that's the stuff, and maybe it's a little bit of our responsibility. Yeah, I'll own up to that. Only a handful of people in Knoxville see us, but everybody sees the national news media. How can we exemplify that the majority of you all get along outside of committee meetings. You all talk about it. I'm sure you text with some Democrats in Washington. You all might not agree on politics and the nitty gritty, but at the end of the day, you care about the person on the other side of the aisle. What's it going to take for people like the shooter and anybody else thinking about this left or right to understand that it's important to care about the other person more than it is about our differences in politics?
Sure. You know, in Nashville, we had that when I was in the legislature, we would fight like cats and dogs and then go out to dinner at night with people in the other party. I did that all the time. But I think it's fewer and farther between. It's partly due to the instantaneous nature of society now with the phones and the computers and what's going on. There's no filter. You just put it out there as soon as you get it. And we used to always talk about if you're going to write a main letter in Congress or not in Congress, but in the state legislature and politics in general, it's best just to wait on it at night and see if you feel the same way in the morning. And a lot of times you wouldn't do that, but there's just not that now. And I think at some point it'll turn because we'll get to a saturation point. I don't know how much more you can turn it up at this point. It's at a fever pitch. So until that point comes, I don't know when it's going to happen. I predict that the kumbaya will end right after the convention. I'd say it'll get pretty ruthless because it's at that stage.
You actually are quoted this week saying, to hell with the convention. We need an investigation now as to what happened. You're
Yeah,
not the only one calling for this investigation, but why are you so passionate about forget about this powwow in Milwaukee? Let's figure out how a former sitting US president was almost shot to death at a rally.
because I've seen this, and part of the nature of Washington D.C. is just a delay, and they're going to tell us they need time to get this to get all their ducks in a row and to get all this, and generally that will reek of a cover up in a lot of instances. Even if it's not, the public will assume it is. And Chairman Comer is he's a good man. He's from Kentucky. I talked to him shortly after the shooting, and he told me that we'll in fact next Monday, I believe the 22nd, we'll start the hearings on this because a lot of questions need to be asked. What was this guy on the roof? How was that allowed? And why was there no aerial surveillance and just no radio communication between somebody 135 yards away from where Donald Trump was standing? Why was he not pulled off the stage? Why was there a hesitation? Did they have to have permission to shoot? What went on with that? And so there's a lot of questions that need to be asked. But we're running. Everybody, it's a 2-year cycle. Everybody's running for reelection, and when sitting members of Congress file legislation to take Trump's Secret Service protection away, nine Democrats, that sends a message. I think that sends a message to some nut out there that it's open game, and I'm afraid we're all in that situation now.
You're running for reelection. You have started to take a little bit more of an outward facing role in your party. Do you fear for your safety at any point now?
Some, sure. I take precautions, and my family takes precautions, and I'll leave it at that.
What's your final message there? This rhetoric's not tamping down. It's not calming down for people on either side who are like, let's burn it down. What's your message to folks who don't understand about the fever pitch, as you say, we're in right now with this rhetoric?
I feel like God has his hand on this country, and we've got to be careful. We keep slapping it away, and that we need to start listening to our heart more than um, those women on The View.
Tim, anything else we left out you feel like you need to add?
Mm. Looking at my notes here. No, absolutely no. Thank you, brother.
Hey, I
Always.
appreciate you as always. Thank you, sir.